The Midtown Mahjong Lounge never slept, not even on a Wednesday at 1:37 a.m. Neon koi swam across the bar's lacquered walls, their projected scales breaking into jittery pixels whenever someone leaned back for a cigarette pull. On most nights, the hum of automatic shufflers, the clack of tiles, and the oots of near-miss hands supplied the soundtrack. Tonight, however, the cadence was different, tight, expectant, electrified, because tonight was the $100,000 Midnight Dragon tournament, and Kelvin Dragon Lau, reigning champion 3 years running, had just waved away his final opponent with a deadpan, self-drawn hand that bordered on arrogant. Applause detonated across the room, rolling toward the bar like a gust. Kelvin bowed, palms pressed together, before lifting the 17-pound jade trophy in one hand, as if it were no heavier than a dumpling steamer. The flashbulbs from half a dozen phones caught the bar's chrome rails, turning them into sudden mirrors. From her station behind the bar, Minji Song polished a stemless glass and forced herself to smile. Tourists loved the theatre of Kelvin Lau, the ironed flat hair falling over one eye, the black gloves, the deliberate swivel of his shoulders after every victorious draw. But Min's stomach fluttered with unease. 2 hours earlier, she'd watched Kelvin lean against the service door, coughing into his fist, as if something were lodged behind his breastbone. A small raw bruise had already been rising on the side of his neck, oval like the face of a bamboo tile. He should see a doctor, she'd thought then. Except people like Kelvin never saw doctors until the pain belonged to yesterday's headline. Now Kelvin hopped onto the lounge's low stage, microphone in hand, trophy still tucked under one elbow. "Luck," he said, grinning wide, "is for people who haven't learned statistics." It was not humble, but Kelvin Lau never was. The courtyard of watchers, investors, gamblers, college kids in thrift store kipao, actual professionals in coupe-glass suits, burst into laughter. Even Mr. Wan, the lounge's owner, nodded with grandfatherly pride beside the cash cage. Another perfect night for Midtown Mahjong. Then Kelvin's grin quivered. His eyes, which Min had always secretly admired for their flinty certainty, searched the room as though someone had just whispered his name. The microphone slipped from his hand, thunking on the stage. His trophy followed, striking the planks with a crack that sounded unpleasantly like bone. Kelvin Lau staggered forward, one hand clutching his throat. On his skin, Min saw the faint stamp of bamboo sprigs, 5 bruised rectangles almost geometric in precision, a Mahjong tile's impression fused to living flesh. Kelvin gasped, but the gasp broke into a wet rattle. He fell. The room, attuned to every twitch of competition, stilled for half a heartbeat, then chaos bloomed. Someone screamed, someone else shouted for a medic. Chips clattered off tables. Players scattered, knocking over chairs as blue-vested security barreled through. Behind the bar, Minji Song's dish rag lay forgotten on a pyramid of unwashed glasses. She watched Kelvin's body convulse once, twice, then go terrifyingly still. And she thought it was already on his neck earlier. Someone finished the job. 34 minutes later, the lounge's front doors were chained, and Detective Maya Hernandez was building an improvised headquarters on table 12, sweeping away ivory tiles to park her laptop. Uniformed officers ringed the exits while 36 patrons and employees sat in stunned semi-silence. EMTs had pronounced Kelvin Lau dead before the ambulance even left 8th Avenue. "Who touched him last?" Hernandez asked, eyes dark with caffeine. Mr. Wan invoked owner's privilege to speak first. Only the playoff competitors, he stammered. And maybe Miss Song, if she refilled his water. All faces pivoted toward Min. Her ponytail still smelled of citrus cleaner, her palms of juniper gin. The attention pricked. I poured him oolong when he took his seat, she said. That was at 11:05. After that, no. Hernandez's gaze flicked to the slim gold watch on her own wrist, then back. You saw the marks. It was not a question. I did, Min said, 2 hours before he collapsed. How'd they get there? If you're asking, you probably don't know either, Min replied, and Hernandez allowed herself the ghost of a smile. Stick around. I get the feeling you notice things. While CSU technicians dusted Kelvin's trophy and swabbed tabletops, Min poured coffee, actual coffee, not the boozy Vietnamese lattes tourists favoured, into paper cups for officers. She moved like someone in rehearsal, each gesture half a second behind real time, while her thoughts pinwheeled. The lounge's old-school feng shui chart hung above the bar, depicting the 5 elements arranged around a wheel. Min's Korean mother used to say that feng shui and Mahjong came from the same ancestor. Both were about patterns, wind, and memory. Tonight those words clanged. Patterns, wind, memory. There had to be a pattern to bamboo bruises. She nudged open the staff-only door and stepped into the supply corridor. Mops leaned against one wall like disciplined soldiers. Overhead, fluorescents hummed. She crouched beside the tournament's spare tile crates, lifted a lid, and ran her fingers over the bamboo suit. Slender rectangles engraved with green branches. Even through the lacquer, she could feel how cool they were. Cold enough to bruise? No. But if someone heated them, pressed them glowing hot against skin, perhaps. Yet Kelvin's marks were dull purple, not blistered. Pressure, not heat. She replaced the lid and caught her reflection in the stainless steel freezer door. Worried brown eyes, apron streaked with ash from yet another patron's blown smoke ring. Kelvin Lau hadn't been touched by a hot tile. He'd been throttled by something shaped like one. Back on the floor, Detective Hernandez ran names. There was Mei Ling Chen, the second-place finisher whose tournament buy-in had been sponsored by an anonymous investor. There was Arman Nouri, a cryptocurrency guru eliminated in the semis, still fidgeting near the restroom line. There was Ling Fei Wong, Kelvin's longtime doubles partner turned rival. And there was Mr. Wan himself, whose private safe drew whispers of laundry money and triad loans. Hernandez interviewed each, but accounts parroted one another. Kelvin had looked healthy, cocky, maybe slightly pale. No one admitted to seeing the bruises beforehand. The champion had apparently possessed no enemies in the room. Min Ji-song knew better. At Seicho 40, she found the courage to edge toward Table 9, where the grand final set still lay in perfect freeze-frame under an officer's watch. 4 walls of tiles, an unfinished 13th row, Kelvin's last self-draw perched by his right hand, 2 of bamboo. "May I?" she asked the officer, who shrugged. Evidence photos were complete. Min slipped a latex glove from a CSI bag and picked up the 2 BAM. A detail revealed itself at once. The tile's bottom edge glistened, not polish, not water. An oily sheen too faint to notice under club lighting, but textured enough to stick to her glove. She leaned close and inhaled. Almond, but with a bitter undertone. Apricot pits? Cyanide? Detective Hernandez appeared behind her. "You find something?" Min held the tile up. "Kelvin's last draw." "Yeah, pictures have that covered. It's coated." Hernandez plucked it with tweezers, sniffed. Her brows knotted. Chemical unit will test. What are you thinking? Pressure bruised him, but poison stopped his lungs, Min said quietly. He collapsed seconds after touching this. Meaning the killer doctored one tile, stacked the wall so Kelvin would draw it. Hernandez exhaled, a low whistle. That requires either wizard-level tile control or an inside accomplice. Min's pulse quickened. There was an accomplice. Herself. She'd been the one who loaded the automatic shuffler before the last round, sliding in the pristine tiles that Mr. Wan handed her when maintenance complained the old set's decals were flaking. She hurried across the room toward the owner's office. Mr. Wan sat behind his desk, flicking a wooden abacus like a man too old for spreadsheets. The room smelled of sandalwood and old secrets. When Min stepped in, he smiled thinly. "Rough night," he said. "The replacement tiles," she began. "Where did they come from?" "A supplier in Flushing." "Which supplier stamps their bamboo suit with a watermark that wipes off as oil?" Wan's hand paused mid-bead. He sighed. "You're sharper than you advertise, Minji. Why do you bartend, not play?" She ignored the deflection. "Answer." He opened a drawer. Inside lay a velvet pouch, midnight blue. He spilled it onto the desk, a full printout of Kelvin Lau's financial ledgers, offshore numbers, gambling debts, insurance policies, and a single polished tile, blank on both faces. Not lacquer, glass, filled with something amber. Kelvin owed people, Wan said. Dangerous people. If he lost, they got their money back. But he never loses. I warned him, throw a game, clear the slate. He laughed. So I struck a compromise. Min stared at the glass tile. Floating inside was a sliver of bamboo, trapped like an insect in resin. Compromise, meaning you kill him. Wan's gaze hardened. Meaning I offered him a painless exit, the tile's toxin, fast, clean. Yet he refused, so I pressed. One way or another, the house survives. I did what a proprietor must. Min's hands trembled. You used me. Wan spread his palms. You have the steady fingers of a croupier. I asked you to swap sets, nothing more. Your conscience remains spotless if you stay silent. Voices approached in the corridor, Detective Hernandez directing CSU toward the office. Time constricted like a tourniquet. Please, Min, one said, softer, almost pleading. The lounge gives you shelter. Don't dismantle it. She pictured Midtown Mahjong without Kelvin's swagger, without Mr. Wan's fatherly nods, without the giddy tourists. Empty, rotting, dark. A future built on hush money and forced complicity. She reached for the blank glass tile, feeling its impossible chill against her skin. You call that shelter, she whispered. Then she slipped the tile into her pocket and walked back into the corridor, leaving Mr. Wan alone with his abacus ghosts. Hernandez listened while Min recounted everything, how Wan supplied the new set, how Kelvin's bruises predated the finals, how a single glass tile probably held enough neurotoxin to paralyze within 30 seconds. When Min finished, the detective removed her glasses and pinched the bridge of her nose. I can't bust him without the tile or the chemical report, she said. Do you have proof? Min drew the glass tile from her pocket, setting it on the felt of table 12. The resin glimmered under fluorescence. Inside, the bamboo sliver drifted like a fossil leaf. Hernandez exhaled. That'll do. 3 officers escorted Mr. Wan out minutes later, hands cuffed, face sagging under decades his friends never saw. Patrons whispered. Some wept. When the doors shut behind the small procession, a hush spread so wide it swallowed the lounge's neon koi. And yet there was still a bar to close, glasses to wash, floors to mop. Traumas seldom waited for formalities. Min stepped behind her counter, rolled up her sleeves, and nudged the espresso switch for one final cup. The police finally unchained the doors at 3:58 a.m. The midtown air, heavy with exhaust, and the faint sweetness of roasted chestnuts from a nearby cart flooded in. Most patrons filed out quickly, eager to outrun the memory of a dead champion. The officers left next, carrying evidence bins. Detective Hernandez lingered, scribbling notes while murder's aftertaste still coated the room. Min stacked chairs. Each metallic scrape echoed like a lonely sparrow call. She'd given her statement, signed paperwork, surrendered the glass tile. There would be court appearances, subpoenas, and headlines. For the first time, she wondered whether she'd still have a job tomorrow, or ever. Hernandez snapped her notebook shut. "The medical examiner will confirm toxin type inside 12 hours, she said. "You comfortable testifying?" "I'll be there," Min answered. Hernandez looked around the empty lounge. "You know, a Mahjong hand is like a puzzle, but it's also a confession. Every discarded tile says what you don't need, so by elimination it shows what you're going for." She met Min's eyes. "You read tonight's hand faster than I could." "I just shuffled the tiles of truth," Min said, surprised by her own steadiness. "They happened to arrange themselves into a story." Hernandez smiled, brief and genuine. "You ever think of taking the detective exam?" "I'm afraid I'd keep trying to serve everyone coffee." "Cops like coffee," Hernandez said, walking toward the door. Sunrise bled orange across the skyscraper glass when Min finally locked up. She paused outside, watching how morning mist painted the streetlights fuzzy. The lounge's neon sign flickered behind her. Midtown Mahjong, the O replaced by a stylized east wind tile. The sign had always made her proud. Tonight it weighed heavy with broken glamour. She remembered Kelvin Lau's parting words, "Luck is for people who haven't learned statistics." He'd read the board, the room, even the invisible hands of probability, but he hadn't seen the human element, the fear that makes people cheat, threaten, kill. Statistics could not guard against a glass tile seeded with malice. Min inhaled. The dawn smelled new, like uncut ginger. Kelvin was gone, Mr. Wan arrested, and the lounge's future uncertain. But Min felt something shift inside her. A tile flipped from unknown to known, completing a pair, opening pathways. She turned east toward the subway. The city's rattle awaited, full of stories. Patterns, wind, memory. She was, it turned out, good at noticing things. Good enough to tilt destiny's wall toward justice, one tile at a time. Tomorrow, she decided, she would stand before whatever board life dealt her and draw without fear. And if the tile she lifted carried poison, she would name it, expose it, discard it for all to see. Because the game only stayed fair if someone kept shuffling the tiles of truth.